Hey guys, so this is What If Daku Had the Powers of Dino Squad Part 4, guys! And I am pumped for this What If because I just rewatched all my first 3 parts of this video. My first 3 parts of this series. Should go back. You haven't watched Part 3, because Part 3 only got like 90 views. So go back, watch those, and you'll understand the rest of this. But last time I left off at pretty much upbringing. Deku and Ochako's relationship became official, and they shared a kiss, and they did stuff, and basically, yeah, a bunch of other stuff happened. So they became a relationship, and they got together. Now, after that, basically, what would happen after that is they would go back to school after the days they got off from the USJ attack, and the real story, my favorite, or one of my favorite parts of My Hero Academia, my favorite arcs, the UA Sports Festival. Let's get into it, guys. We start our story off when Deku and Ochaku go back to school for the UA Sports Festival, or just go back to school after the 2 days they got off, and we see that Deku pretty much basically, and Deku and Ochaku, walk into the school, and they went on Instagram or like their social media and posted that they were like an official relationship, and most of the students, were impressed. Mineta was kind of stingy as always because he's stingy, but basically, Toyu, or I think Froppy would be a little bit stingy, not stingy like Mineta, but a little bit, since she did have a little bit of a crush or a type of feeling towards Deku. But, might go back and forth eventually. If you guys want me to do, like, a little bit of back and forth, like, Froppy trying to get the attention of Deku, and blah, 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 that other stuff. But, yeah, so basically, we continue our story off with Deku and the rest of the class, in class, and they get introduced, or they get told about the USJ, and about what's going to be going on. And as they do this, we basically see that they, get ready. Now, as this happens, we basically see our boy Deku get kind of excited about this. And after that, they basically get told about this, and instead of All Might coming to Deku and talking about him about the sports festival, he doesn't get that, because Deku isn't close with All Might like he was in canon, since he did get his powers from a different type of person. And Deku does look up to All Might, but he mainly looks up to other type of animalistic or more type of dinosaur themed heroes in Japan and in America. But he still looks up to All Might nonetheless, but not as much as he did in the original. Like, a lot, but like just tiny bit less. Basically, as we see that Deku pretty much doesn't get that, whole entire thing with All Might doesn't really see. He does see that Deku is very powerful, but he already made his decision to give his quirk to Mirio, and he's already been training Mirio for a very long time. As we see this happen, we basically see that Deku basically gets ready and gets going for training over the couple of next days before the sports festival. After this, basically Deku trains his body with Ochaku, basically throwing fists, punching, basically just training their physical abilities, their combat, and their quirks. Basically, Ochaku being able to strengthen her quirk into full-on just floating people for a very longer amount of time without losing her grip or her strength, or like her, focus. And also, she was able to, hold up, because Deku would turn to his pterodactyl form with a zero costume suit on, so he would build up a lot more wind pressure in his suit for later on, because he wouldn't be able to use his suit in the sports festival, but he still needed to get some wind pressure built up in his suit. So he just started to fly around pterodactyl mode, basically building up wind pressure as he flies. Basically, him also flying and carrying Ochaku, like dangling her, basically building up her endurance, or basically building up her sickness of motion, or like her zero gravity sickness. Basically, her getting a very more immune version of that. Her getting better with her let's just say her getting better with her whole entire sickness, or her throwing up when she tries to float herself, so she can like at least float herself for about, like, let's say 5 minutes max, and then she starts throwing up like a geyser. So yeah, so basically we see that pretty much Deku and Chaku do train themselves pretty well for the fight. Basically, them also sharing some moments. If you guys know what I know, you guys know what I know. But basically, we see that the rest of them, they get ready and they go to school on the sports festival. They get ready, they get in their sports outfits, and they get ready for the sports festival. And they get ready for the sports festival. As we see this, we see that Deku gets into his, gym clothes or his sports fit, and basically they get ready, and concessions, the pro heroes are here to watch it. A whole thing is thrown, people watch, and TV is on. Deku's mother watching from afar, and being prepared and excited to watch her son, in US, and she does know her son is in UA. As we see this, we see that Deku gets ready, and basically, well, we see that Deku let's get interrupted by Bakugo, but Bakugo doesn't really mess with Deku and just gives him a side glance. Pretty much Deku not really caring for Bakugo anymore, since he does know that he could most likely take, and he can take Bakugo on in a fight. But basically, as this happens, we basically see that Deku pretty much, we see that Deku gets ready, and pretty much they get, introduced, and they get told about their first, obstacle, or race. As they get ready for the obstacle, Ochaku tells Deku to, don't help her and just let her get across the map herself because she wants it to be fair. Basically, her being a little bit more stoic and a little bit more, heroic, but still in it for the money, though. And basically, we see that they get ready, and pretty much they start the race. Todoroki using his ice mainly around the side, mainly near, the people to slow them down, but mainly more ice so he could keep Deku down more. And basically, Deku just transformed his bottom legs into T-Rex legs, or T-Rex shrink down like legs, the body mass of a human, kicking through the ice. Basically, as he does this, he transforms his body into a pterodactyl and starts to fly around as fast as he can. As he does this, he de-transforms and starts to run faster and faster, using an enhanced version of his feet, him transforming his feet into pterodactyl-like humanoid legs. Because he would be bearless, or he'll have no shoes, and his pants would just be folded up to like his thigh, not his thighs, but to his calves. So basically, he would be kind of Jungle Boy type of look with his sports outfit. Basically, him running all around, him jumping over robots. Eventually, they would come across the giant robots, and Todoroki would have froze it off a unbalanced force, or basically froze it unbalanced, and pretty much Tetsu Kirishima would still get crushed underneath it, and they would have popped out since their hardening cork would have saved them. And pretty much we see that Todoroki would have popped out as well, him being in his dinosaur humanoid form that's mainly built or designed for his transformation. The design, and pretty much go on par with the strength of All Might. Not as strong as All Might, but being able to copy his strength on smaller terms. Basically, he jumps up and basically, starts to sprint after Todoroki. Now, this form isn't really focused on speed, but it can run pretty quickly. Basically, he would be starting to sprint, and basically, they would have came towards the mountain area. Basically, they would have jumped over them. Deku would have used his pterodactyl form, and basically would have transformed into a pterodactyl, and basically would have started to fly over. He would transform into a pterodactyl. He would start to fly. Now, guys, the picture is kind of simple, but it's the same color scheme as Deku's transformation, or is the same pterodactyl color stream or color theme that Deku's pterodactyl has. Sorry, I can't talk right now, but basically, see that Deku starts to fly around the rock or like canyon area and starts to fly over all of them. As he gets towards the pretty much bomb area, he flies down right over the bombs through the tunnel and starts to fly faster and faster. Seeing that Todoroki and Bakugo would try desperately to keep up with Deku, basically being right on his tail about 6 feet behind him, then moving a lot more quicker, and Todoroki not really caring and just straight up just ice sliding across, and him using a little bit of his ice to shatter the ice behind him, and him leaving everybody else back so they don't get the easy route and go behind Todoroki. Now, Todoroki and Bakugo start to sprint incredibly, like straight up using their powers to boost themselves like a freaking Sonic character right behind Deku. As Deku sees this, he speeds up he moves up his speed. But as he sees this, It's just he built up more speed, trying to go faster and faster. But Todoroki and Bakugo like 6 feet behind him. Daku is like right there at the finish line, and he goes to the finish line, going through the tunnel and winning. Todoroki and Bakugo bumping in the back of him since they were boosting themselves incredibly fast and they didn't know how to stop, so they just bumped into Deku. As Deku gets the same headband, most people don't want to team up with him because they don't want that much people on their backs. But in this canon, Ochaku still, straight up goes to Deku to team up with him. And basically, he has the same type of team. Pretty much them getting ready for, the other part. Now, basically, I don't really like this part of the sports festival because it's kind of boring. Basically, as this happens, we pretty much see that, well, Deku sees this and wants to get this part over with and pretty much do it kind of like camping style. So he transforms into pretty much his pterodactyl form, but is able to focus his body hard enough to basically, well, use the mass from his T-Rex form and pounce it onto his pterodactyl form. Pretty much, well, grabbing his team and flying them in a straight area, like a circle, right across everybody. Way too high for anybody to reach, then winning the battle, or them winning the game, basically them not being able to be reached. Basically, as you see this, we get past from that part of the story or that part of the U.S. Sports Festival as we switch to the 1v1s. Now, they do get a little break, and pretty much you see that Deku, is in the restroom putting some water on his face because he feels a little bit tired and tuckered out from doing something like that because he never tried, trying to pit on a different amount of mass that another transformation had because, like, he just pounced on some mass from a T-Rex. He just pounced on some weight from a Stegosaurus onto his body. That's how he made his Stegosaurus form. And basically, stuff like that. But he never tried taking a whole different, whole transformation or a whole T-Rex form or Velociraptor form and just throwing a whole amount of mass on it. Because that tuckered him out pretty quickly. Yeah, pretty much you see this. Deku basically, pretty much gets ready for the next match or the 1v1s. As we see the 1v1s start, they begin. Basically, as we see this happen, we see that the first match is the same, pretty much going the same. And when Deku goes up, the goal against, Shoto, I think his name was not Shoto. That's the Todoroki's name or last name. I can't remember his name. The mind control quirk guy or the purple hair kid. Basically, we see that him and Deku still go up against each other. Now, Deku was still warned by the toe quirk guy in class 1A in his class. Basically, warning him about it. As Deku sees this, basically Deku keeps his mouth shut. But pretty much the mind control quirk guy, as Deku's about 7 feet away from him, walking towards him. We see how he starts to make remarks towards Ochaku, saying that she's a little, word I can't say on YouTube, and pretty much just, talking about her and just calling her words that a man should never call a woman. Basically just saying, slurs on top of slurs. Pretty much the audience being incredibly offended, but most of the heroes seeing this as kind of pushing so Deku could say something, because most of the heroes that are, cool-minded know that this is a very hard thing not to say anything about. Basically, some of the heroes even wanted to say something about it as well and try to disqualify the kid, but they know that this is the only way he could possibly taunt Deku into talking to him, because some of them in the audience do know about Shinso's quirk. Yeah, Shinso, that's his name. Shinso. I can't, I don't know how to pronounce it. Shinso, yeah. Shinso basically starts to mock Deku about how his quirk is monstrous, and pretty much him being kind of offended, but not actually kind of confused, saying that, how is it monsters? Just turn to dinosaurs. Basically, him thinking that, him not saying it, basically he starts to try to power through it, not saying anything. But he makes one thing about how Ochaku is a S word. And basically, Deku goes off. Deku starts to yell and cuss him out, basically running towards him at full speed, about to just sucker punch him without using any of his powers, just wanting to feel his blood against his knuckles. his own Knuckles, but basically he gets stopped in his tracks because he said something. He answered his question when he talked back to Shinso. Shinso tells him how the mighty fall. He tells Deku to walk out of the state, to walk off the walk off and to disqualify himself. And basically Deku starts to walk off. As we see that Deku walks off, we see that as he's walking off, he pretty much before he walks off, you see that it was a little piece of rubble that Deku. We see that it was a little piece of rubble that Deku kicked off of the concrete when he like speed dashed towards Shinso to beat him up. Pretty much him tripping over that, him falling down to the ground, him being knocked out of Shinso's mind control. Before Shinso can say anything else to try to pit Deku under his mind control again, Deku sprints towards him, transforming into his Stegosaurus form, and sucker punching the absolute soul out of Shinso. I mean, Shinso's soul left his body for a quick second, bro. I mean, this man Shinso went to the Shadow Realm, bro. This man Shinso went to the Gulag. I mean, he got slept. He got slept, bro. I ain't even exaggerating. Like, bro, a whole Goku Kamehameha type of folded. I mean, like, how, like, it was equivalent to a punch of straight up 1,000 men with Superman's strength. Not this kidding, bro. But Shinso, it was the most pain he ever felt in his life. And the punch was so hard that it knocked Shinso on the other side of the other side of the whole, like, stadium. Like, right on the other side, him making the huge crater behind him. Him having multiple broken bones, shattered ribs, and just him being incredibly lucky not to be paralyzed. And him not to be paralyzed. So what would happen is pretty much Deku would have, de-transformed. Pretty much his clothes being kind of ripped. Because like, before... No, sorry, guys. No. Yeah, so basically... scratch it. They did make a modified version of Deku's sports suit, so it wouldn't rip when he transformed. So yeah, so basically, he would de-transform, and he would see, Shinso be knocked out. The medics would arrive, and they would have said that, Shinso was incredibly lucky not to be paralyzed because, his spine almost was completely shattered because of the crater behind him. And Shinso doesn't have any, superhuman durability, and that massive amount of a punch could have killed him, actually. But Deku was too much filled with rage and, straight up just disrespect. Like, he was disrespected. Like, someone disrespected his girl. He had to do something. So, pretty much, everybody saw this. And pretty much most of the some of the hero agencies would have seen Deku was a little bit violent. And would have said Deku, overreacted. Most of those people being kind of, sexist heroes, but basically most of them being, empathetic towards Deku's, reaction, since he did get mind controlled, and his girl was talked about in a very disrespectful manner. Some of the people in the audience were actually cheering after Deku sent this man Shinso to the Gulag. And basically, after we do this, basically we see that the rest of the matches go similar the same, and when Bakugo goes up against Ochaku, that sparks a flame of pure rage and hatred towards Bakugo in Deku's heart. Now, as we see this, we see that Bakugo throws the explosion towards, Ochaku, and the fight goes similarly the same. Pretty much Ochaku still losing. Her being able to stretch out the fight a little bit longer since she did train her physical body, not just her sickness, her motion sickness, more of her physical body and strength, but she was still knocked out, or she was still, defeated by Bakugo because of his brute strength and brutalness. Basically, Ochaku was, still taken out, and Deku was incredibly angered by this. He was just out for blood at this point. He was in the hallway, and he was, like, cracking his knuckles. He was making himself ready. He was just, like, hyping himself up to straight up just knock Bakugo out of his socks. I mean, this Deku was prepared to actually kill Deku on live television. He was prepared to literally make this man Bakugo suffer. Let's get into it, guys. Basically, we see that Deku gets ready, hypes himself up, and goes out there to go up against none other than Todoroki. He's like determined to take down Todoroki so he can, get to Bakugo. As Todoroki and him fight, they get started, and Deku doesn't say anything to Todoroki, and straight up just throws a huge punch towards him, but getting stopped by ice. Todoroki is pushed back and uses his Stegosaurus form, transforming into that, crabbing himself to the ground. As we see this, Deku is filled with rage and isn't really here for Todoroki, doesn't really care for Todoroki, and doesn't get Todoroki that talk. As they start to fight, they fight more and more, and over time, Todoroki sees no choice but to use his fire side, because his ice isn't really effective, and Deku's just pounding through his ice like nothing, like straight up Lego blocks, just taking them out. Now basically, as you see Todoroki cornered up, he's about to get kicked out of the ring, but Todoroki, goes back into a flashback by himself, not being, instigated or helped by Deku, because Deku doesn't care about Todoroki's situation. He just wants to get through Todoroki to get to Bakugo. As this happens, Todoroki has a flashback about his memories and does have that little bit of character development on his own, because he's, backed up into a situation he can't win. And pretty much he, taps into both of his power. Basically coming on par with the strength of Deku. Basically him shooting a huge amount of power, making his awakening move, a little bit stronger. A little bit like the same strength, just like 1 megasecond weaker. Just one a square of his strength and his awakening move is taken away, but not enough to actually make a big difference. So basically, he just uses his awakening move the same, basically pushing Deku almost out of the ring. But since Deku's durability and plus, pretty much his form being able to go up against a Nomu, he gets back up, throwing a shard of ice that's on the ground, halfway melted, throwing it upside Todoroki's head, knocking Todoroki out of the ring. Basically, him winning. And very much as we see him walk off, he doesn't cheer. He doesn't, he's not excited. He's not happy. He just wants to get this over with and get to Bakugo. After that, eventually the Bakugo match goes up, and Deku and Bakugo are in the same ring. Bakugo says, "You're here for your girlfriend, huh? Well, you're gonna suffer the same fate." Basically, Bakugo going on about how he trained way harder than he's ever done before, and he's ready to take him on. Deku being kind of confused, but not really caring, because he just wants to take Bakugo down slowly and painfully. As this happens, Deku transforms into his Stegosaurus form and gets ready. They get started into a fight, and they go all out, charging towards each other. They start going for punch after punch after punch after throw after throw, thrust after thrust, just punching the absolute dog water out of each other. Bakugo throwing punches and explosions on par with All Might's kicks or slaps or punches, basically throwing explosions left and right towards Deku's face, burying him a little bit and burying his transformation. Basically him having some, scars and punches on his face and on his transformation. Him going after more and more punches, after more and more throws, kicks, punches, tail wags, explosions on top of explosions. Just they're having a brutal, bloody fight. As they're on the ground, 6 feet away from each other, bleeding out at this point, because they were going back and forth, punch after punch, punch back to back towards each other. Deku starts to cough up gallons of blood through his transformation and de-transforms into his normal form. Bakugo basically having scratch marks and punch bruises on his chest, arms, and face. Him having a really big scratch gash right across his chest. He gets up, basically seeing Deku on the ground in his knees, basically, covered in blood. He goes to throw another explosion towards Deku, and Deku looks up to Bakugo and says, "Gotcha," transforming his right arm into a pterodactyl arm and basically cutting Bakugo's throat. Basically, Bakugo falls out to the ground, and pretty much you see that the people in the audience are completely shocked at what Deku did. Now Deku gets up and see that Deku did only scratch Bakugo's like left part of his like not his throat, but like his neck, the left part of his neck, basically cutting deep enough to, you know, start to have Bakugo, cut bleed out, but him not having his throat, um, him not drowning in his own blood. So Bakugo didn't really, start to bleed out. He just started to bleed out. And basically the medics showed up, pretty much got Bakugo off the, ring, and Deku, since, Bakugo did get a immediate medical attention, he did win. Most of the hero agencies were turned off by this, but most of them that were more cold-blooded, or the hero agencies that were more cold-blooded and knew about how battle is all about everything, and about how in a real fight you can't expect to play well fair, and you can't really give up no matter what. Basically, most of them, at least like 100 or like 500 of them, still wanting Deku. Now, basically, you see that Deku pretty much, does have some medical attention needs. He does need to get into, because he has like he has third-degree burns on his body, just punches in his chest, and just explosions, burn marks, scorches, everything. Like he's been in a burning building for hours. Deku gets up and starts to halfway slowly regenerate. Deku does have a slight regeneration factor, since he does have a little bit of a lizard type of automatic regeneration throughout his whole body, meaning that Deku can regenerate, but it takes months on months for a lizard to regrow their tail, aka a limb. So Deku can regrow a limb, but it would take months. And since his arm or his body is a lot more complex than the tail, pretty much it would take about 7 months for him to grow back a whole arm or a whole leg. Now for a finger, probably a week or so. But yeah, basically, or for like a foot, probably a month. But yeah, so basically we would say that Deku could regrow, a tongue or eye in about 2 weeks or a week. But yeah, so basically we see that Deku pretty much, Deku starts to slowly regenerate from his burn marks in about 1 hour, and basically gets ready and gets right back in commission. Him having some internal bleeding, but it being healed as well in a span of a couple hours. Because Deku can't instantly heal from scrapes, cuts, or stab wounds. He has to be, because Deku, he can still bleed out or get shot down and bleed out and die. But if he gets medical attention, he's able to stop the blood. He can slowly start to heal in a couple hours or a couple minutes. If it's a small cut, like a paper cut, he can heal from that in about half a minute. But yeah, basically we see that Deku pretty much, after his third-degree burns heal up in about an hour. Pretty much medical girl being confused on why Deku's already healing a little bit since he got into the medical room. Pretty much her just sitting back and watching it. Basically, we see that Deku, at this point, actually didn't really know that much about his regeneration. The medical girl told him about his regeneration capabilities, and he was impressed. As we see this happen, we see that medical girl wants to run some tests. They do run some tests, and they found out that Deku, they found out the same thing I told you guys earlier about his, the days that it would take for him to regenerate limbs and stuff like that, and he can regenerate limbs and blah blah blah. Saying that his body constantly gives off, constantly regrowing and regenerating cells, kind of like how your human body regrows cells, and after a long while, when you get older, you're healing, and scrapes and bruises take a lot longer to heal. Deku has a constant train of just DNA, or not DNA, but extra DNA or extra pretty much cells that he can just regenerate instantly. So he just has an overabundance of just access or built up extra fat or tissue that he could just regenerate whole limbs and bones and structures and nervous systems and all that other stuff. Deku can't regrow a whole body part. Deku can't regrow a whole body he was cut in half. Because if Deku Deku's regeneration is automatic because a lizard's tail healing is automatic, not by will, kind of like how Amazing Spider-Man said that. It's not a big critique. It's it's easily misinterpreted, but basically Deku's regeneration is constant. He cannot turn it off. Cause like bruises, punches, and beatings, they can go away in a couple minutes. Probably like about like a couple minutes, like 10, 15 minutes. Like a bruise, or like soreness, or like a stumped toe, or a scooter, or a scooter. How your scooter, the scooter slides around and hits your ankles. A Deku can get heal from that for like 1 minute. But that's a pain that no man can go through without feeling complete and utter pain. Unbelievable. But yeah, so basically, we see that pretty much Deku, gets out of the medical room pretty quickly, and sees that Bakugo can immediate care. Now, pretty much, Deku still has bandages on him, but he just rips it off. He doesn't really need them anymore. And pretty much he goes and meets up with Shaku. Shaku tells him that you didn't really need to do that, and you did a little bit too much. Deku says he called you, and you guys can feel him. The S word. Most, just jerks call them women. So yeah. So basically, Deku, kind of straight up just. No. Bakugo didn't say that. She said that, but he humiliated you. He took you down. He beat you. Basically, Shaku said he did that, and I'm thankful that you stood up for me with Shinso and Bakugo, but just don't go overboard. And pretty much kissing him on the cheek, and walking with him, walking back home after the sports festival. Deku does get supported by some pro heroes, but mainly, Asao doesn't really care, since he doesn't really blame Deku for the Shinso incident, but he does say that Deku did go a little bit overboard. Most of the heroes think Deku went way too overboard with almost slitting Bakugo's throat. Basically, because most of the audience thought Deku slit his throat. And basically, that shows how dangerous and how brutal Deku's quirk can really be if it was in the wrong hands for another person. But after the sports festival, after the villains see this, Shigaraki sees something and is confused, seeing that his transformations every time, because on the news I didn't mention this. I think I mentioned it in part 1. Every time Deku transforms, his eyes glow bright yellow, kind of like how the transformations in Dino Squad did. Basically, them being confused and Shigaraki going back on past memories that he had doing the testing with the serum, or the thing that made the whole entire thing with the Dino Squad serum, basically giving Deku his powers. Pretty much doing this, we see that Deku pretty much, it's kind of the experiment that went right. Pretty much them saying that we were just using too much of a strong, dosage, and we just had to water it down. Basically, what was it? Basically, All For One seeing this, and the company that funded the villains to make this were also very, very intrigued. Basically, most of them are saying it's hard, just a kid with a quirk that's uncannily like the transformation of the test. And basically, Shigaraki saying, no, I know this kid is the key to the testing to the modified Dino quirk. Basically, we see that the villains want this because they want to know how Deku made, or how Deku's DNA is different from other test subjects, or how the serum, gave Deku this incredible, completely good power that's just complete, complex, and powerful. Basically, them wanting to know how this works, and wanting to know everything. Basically, we see that Shigaraki wants it as well, since he already has a pretty good quirk. He just wants to be powerful, because imagine somebody with All Might's quirk with the power of Deku's quirk on top of that. That's an OP guy. And imagine Shigaraki with the powers or the strength of a pterodactyl or a velociraptor. Or imagine somebody with disintegrating hands, somebody that can disintegrate you or decay you with one hand, that can straight up sprint at the speed of a velociraptor or break through a wall with the strength of a T-Rex, is just chasing after you. That's nightmare fuel. That's nightmare fuel. Basically, imagine somebody like All For One, the power of Deku added on top of his already humongous array of powers. That's a god right there, an anime god. Basically, most of the villains and heroes and people in the villain society that don't have quirks want this for themselves. And since they heard about how the progress or the program was shut down, and how the program wasn't truly shut down, it was just the progress of it was going very slowly. So they didn't pay as much funding as they did personally, and just wanted to give it a chance. So they did still have it in the works, because later on they're gonna make another serum, blah blah blah. Deku's gonna take it, and it's gonna be like a whole entire All For One. It's gonna happen in the All For One arc, and Deku might become stronger. If you guys think that's way too much power for Deku, just comment down below and tell me. But yeah, guys, I'm gonna leave it off here. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys like and subscribe. As always, guys, have a blessed day. And before I before I go, I think his name's Dino 67. I don't remember your name, guy. I don't remember you. I don't remember your name. Sorry, I can't go back. Basically, you commented on my last part 3, and dude, what if Deku was Lizard? I might bring that back, because I don't know how long ago that was. Probably 7 months ago, or probably 6 months ago. I forgot I even made that what if actually. But yeah, after this video, guys, I'm going to be uploading what if Shazam was an Invincible part 5, and also what if Ben 10 was an Invincible part 3, or no, part 2. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and see you guys later. Have a blessed day.